Hey there. I hope you are doing well. Listen, we are going to dive right into Word on Wednesdays, and I want you to know that this is a special one. I can't believe I'm teaching on it, but I'm qualified because everyone is born with unique gifts, talents, abilities, and strengths that shape how we interact with the world around us. These gifts can be spiritual, intellectual, creative, or relational. They are meant to enrich our lives, empower us to fulfill our purpose, and serve others. However, gifts can sometimes be misunderstood, manipulated, and even used against us by others. So, this discussion today on Word on Wednesday will explore the nature of gifts, how they can be both a blessing and a vulnerability, and how to protect yourself from those who might misuse your gift for their own purposes. The focus today is on number one, understanding the nature of gifts. Number two, recognizing how gifts can be exploited. And then number three, strategies to safeguard your gift from being used against you. Y'all ready to walk with me through this? Come on, just say to yourself, I'm gonna stick with overseer just for a few moments on this one. So as we begin, I want to anchor in on some definitions on types of gifts. Number one, there are natural gifts. So these include talents and abilities that we're born with or develop naturally over time. Some examples could include musical talent, artistic ability, athleticism, or intellectual capabilities. And then there are something that we'll put in the category of acquired gifts. And so these are skills or expertise gained through education, experience, and or training. For instance, leadership abilities, communication skills, or problem solving talents. And then our third bucket, we'll call these our spiritual gifts. For those coming from a faith perspective, these can include discernment, prophecy, healing, teaching, or wisdom, which are often seen as divinely bestowed to benefit others and to bring glory to God. Here's a key point. Your gifts are an integral part of who you are, shaping your path in life and your ability to make a difference in the world. Let's transition to the purpose of gifts and just line those. Again, we're going to stick with three. We're going to line by line. Here we go. Self fulfillment, number one. Our gifts bring joy and purpose into our lives. I'll say it again. Our gifts bring joy and purpose into our lives. They help us to feel fulfilled, confident, and connected to what we were meant to do and who we were meant to be. Number two is service to others. Gifts are often meant to be shared, helping others or building a sense of community. For example, a leader inspires, a teacher educates, a healer comforts. And then there's that third bucket, that kingdom work for those with spiritual gifts. So from a faith perspective, spiritual gifts are used to serve God's purpose, strengthen the faith of others, as well as build up your faith community. Another key point. Our gifts are not only for us, they are intended to be used for the benefit of others. Now, while gifts are inherently positive, they can also create vulnerabilities. Breathe that in just for a moment. Let's just sit with that for a moment. Inherently positive, but can also create vulnerabilities. People, intentionally or unintentionally, may exploit or manipulate your gift for their benefit, leading to harm or emotional strain. And here are a couple of ways that this can happen. Let's walk through them. Come on, one more time. Say, I'm gonna stick with overseer right here. Number one is manipulation through flattery. People may recognize your gifts and flatter you excessively, making you feel indispensable or special. Hmm. This can lead to a dynamic where you are constantly giving while others take advantage of your talents without offering anything in return. They use your need for affirmation as a way to control or overburden you. Give an example. You are naturally empathetic or a compassionate person, and someone constantly comes to you for emotional support, but never reciprocates. Never reciprocates. Over time, you begin to feel drained, but they continue to rely on your emotional gift without considering your well being. Here's a question for discussion for those who came to this word on Wednesday, not knowing you were coming sort of to a life class. A question for you to ponder. How can we tell the difference between genuine appreciation of our gifts and flattery used for manipulation? Hmm. If we were in person, that would be a really good group discussion. If you have some answers to that, you could go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll all benefit from your answers. We'll get to some solutions, some strategies at the end, but certainly don't withhold if you have something pertinent to say. Number two, we don't talk about this enough, especially in faith communities, but certainly now that we're in this climate where we're hearing things daily, sometimes multiple times a day on the news, um, about one that has exploited others because of their talents. And so, number two is the exploitation of your time and talents. People may place unreasonable demands on your gift, knowing that you're talented in a certain area. This is especially common in workplaces or group settings where certain people are always called upon to take on extra work because they are more capable. And eventually, your talents become a burden and you feel overwhelmed. I know that piece of it is not in the news. I'm choosing not to focus on that on today. Here's an example. You're highly skilled in organizing events, and others in your community always depend on you to plan, manage, and execute functions, expecting you to handle everything without support. What started as a passion can quickly turn into an expectation. Question for you to ponder. How do we set boundaries when your gifts are being exploited? Mm, wow. How do we set boundaries when we're in the midst of exploitation? Number three, jealousy and sabotage. The reality is, brothers and sisters, is that not everyone will celebrate your gifts. Some people might feel threatened by your talents and try to undermine you. They may downplay your achievements and criticize your efforts or set you up to fail, all while pretending to support you. Don't ask me how I know. Just know I'm qualified to teach this lesson. This is especially true in competitive environments. And don't be fooled, my brother. Don't be fooled, my sister. We find competition even in the church. Here's an example. In a workplace or ministry setting, you excel in leadership, or others see your growth as a threat. They might start spreading rumors, giving you poor advice, or deliberately withholding information to sabotage your success. Question for you. How can you handle jealousy or sabotage when others try to undermine the gifts we possess? Let me make sure all of my nouns and verbs agreed. Let me say it again. How can we handle jealousy or sabotage when others try to undermine the gifts we possess? Write that down. I'll give you a moment. Mm. All right. Number four, dependence and emotional burden. People who know you're strong in areas such as empathy, leadership, or problem solving may rely on you to the point where you become emotionally burdened. They may offload their problems onto you without taking responsibility, creating a dynamic where your gift then becomes a weight. So, if you have the gift of discernment or wisdom, people may constantly ask for advice or guidance and then never act on it. We all know people that way. Yeah, they waste your time. You pour out and pour out and pour out, and they continue to go forth and make the bad decisions that they're going to make. And over time, you begin to feel like a dumping ground for other people's problems, feeling emotionally exhausted. Here's a question for you. How do you guard your emotional well being when people become overly dependent on your gifts? This is a thinking class today. Yeah, no tune up, no fanfare, none of that. Just, hmm. Lastly, spiritual manipulation for those with faith based gifts. In faith contexts, spiritual gifts such as prophecy, discernment, or leadership can be used by others to manipulate or control. Sometimes leaders and or fellow believers might misuse someone's spiritual gift to push their own agenda, twisting the meaning or purpose of the gift to suit their goal. Here we go, example. You have the gift of prophecy or wisdom, and someone tries to convince you that God told them you should do something that aligns with their desires rather than God's will for your life. Here's the question. How can you protect your spiritual gifts from manipulation? And how do you discern God's true direction from the influence of others? Wow. All right, let's pivot out of that to protecting yourself and safeguarding your gifts, and then we're done. Number one strategy is you got to set boundaries. It's important to know your limit and set healthy boundaries with others. Even though your gifts are meant to serve, you are not obligated more than you can or should. You're not obligated to give more than you can or should. Setting limits on your time, energy, and resources is not selfish. Let me say it again. Setting limits on your time, energy, and resources is not selfish. It's necessary for protecting your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Here's another key point. You got to learn when to say no. Let me look away so you won't say I'm talking directly to you. You got to learn to say no. Mm. And recognize when your gifts are being overused or manipulated. Boundaries protect your gifts and allow you to serve others more effectively. Wow. Number two, discernment and wisdom. You got to ask God for discernment to recognize when others are manipulating or exploiting you. You got to pay attention. Pay attention. Tap yourself somewhere and say, pay attention to how people treat you, how they speak about your gifts, and whether their actions align with their words. Not every opportunity to use your gift is a divine or necessary one. Oh my God. Come on, right. Stay with me. Stay with me. Not every door is a door you should walk through. Again, not every opportunity to use your gift is a divine or necessary one. You got to seek wisdom from trusted individuals who can provide an objective perspective. Be mindful of situations where your gifts are being drained for someone else's benefit without reciprocity. Wow, that was huge. Come on, just take a breath there. Let that thing sink in. Number three, you got to know your worth. I'm talking to everybody, but I especially want to talk to my creatives and my artists. When people misuse your gifts, they can make you feel undervalued or taken for granted. So it's important to know your worth and not allow others to define your value based on their use of your gifts. You get it? Your identity is not in how much you give or how others perceive you. We need to take another breath right there. Come on, take a breath. Ooh, let that thing settle into your belly. Your identity is not in how much you give or how others perceive you, but in the inherent value of who you are. Yeah, I can feel you. Somebody just took a big breath. Ooh, I just told one of my artists on yesterday, ma'am, you don't leave home for less than, and I threw out a number. I'm not going to put you in their business. You are world renowned, and we are not traveling anywhere waiting on payment. The payment needs to have been made. I, I used to leave home for a few $100 here there, drive 2 hours in this Chicagoland traffic to a gig. I mean, leave everything on the stage. I mean, everything, and drive back home until I anchored in on my wealth. I'm sorry, my worth, because my worth was feeding into my wealth. When I realized that secular companies were paying me, and don't worry, I'm not getting ready to put you in my business. Yeah, I'm not giving you no information. To speak at conferences, or a church would invite me for a weekend with a budget for me that included travel, housing, food, and honorarium, I had to stop some other things. I was attracting what I was accepting. Oh, take a breath right there. Take a breath. I'm talking to my business owners right there. As a caterer, I gave away more food than what was paid for. They paid for 10, but I sent enough food to feed 15 because I was concerned that they had enough. And I was a people pleaser. I couldn't continue that way because at the end of the day, it was business. Handle your business. Mind your business. I know we usually hear that, in a negative connotation, mind your business. I want you to hear it in a positive affirmation. I'm minding my business. I'm tending to what pays me. I'm tending to what is securing my future. Because if you continue to accept it, you don't have a right to complain about what you're attracting. The atmosphere has molecules, and molecules has memory. So what we allow is what will come. Wow. Stay rooted in your purpose and worth, and don't let others diminish your confidence in your gift. Before we get to the conclusion, we got to have some prayer. You got to pray for protection and guidance, especially those with faith based gifts. If your gifts are spiritual, you got to seek God's protection over them. You got to pray for discernment, strength, and the wisdom to steward your gifts well. Ask God to give you the clarity to know when to use your gift and how to protect them from manipulation and abuse. Last key point, your gifts are from God, and He will guide you in how to use them for His glory, not for the agendas of others. We got a couple of takeaways, and then I'm gonna let you go. I think the first takeaway: your gifts are precious. They are meant to bring joy, fulfillment, and service to others, but they can also make you vulnerable to manipulation or misuse by others, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally. Number two, learning how to set boundaries, use discernment, and protect your gifts will help you maintain control over how they are used and ensure that you are not drained or exploited. Lastly, it's important to surround yourself with people who genuinely appreciate and support your gift or your gifts, not just those who take advantage of them. Couple of reflection questions, just two, and then, well, three. Yeah, three. Can you identify a time when someone used your gift against you? How did it make you feel? And what did you learn from the experience? It's number one. You can put it in the chat. You can write it down in your journal, on a piece of paper, on the back of a piece of mail, whatever you need to capture it on. Number two, what are some practical ways you can set boundaries around your gifts in the future? And number three, how can you balance using your gifts to serve others while protecting your emotional, mental, and spiritual health? Wow, what a class. Wow. Your gifts are a blessing, but they require stewardship. Be mindful of how they are used and ensure that you are in control of how, when, and for whom you give. Protect your gifts from those who might misuse them. And trust that when used wisely, your gifts will lead to fulfillment and purpose. Wow, we're done. We're done. Couple of minutes in. Parents, parents, parents. It's just not safe to turn your children over to individuals because they have influence. We're seeing this in the news every day where people have been violated because of their gift. You've got to, whatever the gifting is in, whatever industry the gifting is in, parents, you've got to learn as much about that industry as your child has gifting. So if you're out looking for a manager, that's a good thing. But that means you've got to be a part of that management team. You've got to know every move, every step. You've got to trust your child with your life. Mm. And I'll say the same thing to any adult that's gifted. You've got to trust your gift with your life. Because in most cases, it's your livelihood, or at least it's part of your livelihood. Gave us something to think about today. I love you, and I want you to know the truth. I want you to know the truth. Listen, we'll see you later on this week. I want you to pray. On tomorrow, I fly out of here, heading someplace. I was getting ready to give you some details. Heading someplace to just be with family. Heading to one of my homes, a place that I consider home. And but don't forget, we will be in prayer on Friday, and then we'll be back at this station, so to speak, on Sunday with a word from the Lord. I hope you were blessed. If there was something said that blessed you, and you want to be a blessing to what God is doing here, then you can do that. I'm going to put up the information on how you can sow into this ministry, certainly via Cash App or via Zelle. Cash App is $AWEINTL. Zelle is email address JAE at AWEINTL.org. Listen, reach out, be a blessing to us as we continue to be a blessing to you, not only here locally, but certainly around the world. One of the reasons that we don't do music anymore. Um, Okay, I see you, producer. You're putting up the $10 sign. So however you want to be a blessing, if it's $2, if it's $10, if it's $100, however the Lord would bless you to be a blessing to us, you can certainly do that. Um, what was I saying? The reason why we have cut out music on these productions on this offering is because, especially in international areas where there are license issues, it blocks this ministry from going across the waters outside of the United States. And so we just, for a moment, we'll get to a space where we'll have live service and you can have the music again, that good feeling. But in most cases, we are doing it this way so that our constituents in Japan and India and other parts of the world who are in regular fellowship with us, that they can continue to view, whether it be on Facebook or on YouTube. Well, listen, my 30 minutes is up. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm always going to give you the truth. I'm always going to give you transparency as much as I can without alienating or isolating um, some of my constituents. I love you. We'll talk soon. All right. Goodbye.